There's this expectation that we must sacrifice ourselves at the altar of a healthcare system that will never love us back. So, what do, you might be wondering? We rebel. We rebel by creating lives with time for hobbies, fun, creative pursuits, rest, and joy. We are diligent about our schedules and ruthless with our boundaries. We say no to extra shifts, to working earlier, staying later, and adding just one more patient to our schedules today. Welcome to The PA is In, the show created by PAs for PAs, where codependency with your supervising physician is a thing of the past, optimal team practice is the future, and physician associate has taken the place of physician assistant as the professional title of choice. I'm Tracy Bingaman, and I'm obsessed with redefining what success as a PA looks like and what it feels like. Here you'll find the mindset shifts, systems, and processes I use to escape healthcare burnout and integrate my work into my life. Work-life balance is a myth, and an integrated life where you thrive professionally, not a balancing act, is the goal here. My mission is to help you to grow into a unicorn PA who loves their job, has abundant energy, time to spare, and work-optional financial freedom. The PA is in. One of my very favorite things about being a podcaster is crossing paths with other incredible podcasters. If you love this show, especially when I share about my experience with healthcare burnout and recovery, you're going to want to check out the podcast, Burnout, What I've Learned So Far, hosted by my friend Meg Letty. Meg is a former CT surgery PA turned advocate for healthcare provider wellness. Turn in to hear how she recovered from burnout and integrated well-being into her life to create a life of dreams, not nightmares. Add Burnout, What I Have Learned So Far with Meg Letty to your podcast queue to start your journey to wellness and healing today. How many times this week or this month have you thought there's just not enough time? I'm too busy, or life is moving too quickly and time is flying by. Time is one of our most limited resources in life. It's the single thing that is not renewable. We cannot make more minutes in the hours or more hours in the day. We each need more margin in our life, more white space between each item on our calendar. If you're feeling like you're consistently rushing from one thing to another, from home to work with a drive-by at school or daycare, rushing to practice, dinner, bath, bedtime, and collapsing on the couch to watch Netflix, or worse, crack open your laptop to finish your charting, this episode is for you. Today, we are talking about how to create more margin in your life, that white space, extra time, and wiggle room. Because here's the thing about life. There are different versions of you. You shift through different identities as different seasons of your life come and go. In order to grow into the latest, most evolved version of you, you need that wiggle room. In your life, margin is a gift. But in order to create more margin in your life, it takes intentionality. You have to be intentional and willing to make changes to the way that things have always been done in order to create more margin. Because the default for us working in this modern world is to be extremely overscheduled. Oftentimes in medicine, it's a race to the bottom, a contest about whose job, employer, specialty is the worst and why. An unspoken agreement between those working in healthcare that more is better. There is this element of martyrdom that comes along with working in medicine. Self-sacrifice is the cost of admission into a career where a life of service and making others feel better is what we do. There's this expectation that we must sacrifice ourselves at the altar of a healthcare system that will never love us back. So what do, you might be wondering? We rebel. We rebel by creating lives with time for hobbies, fun, creative pursuits, rest, and joy. We are diligent about our schedules and ruthless with our boundaries. We say no to extra shifts, to working earlier, staying later, and adding just one more patient to our schedules today. Now that I've convinced you that what we all need is wiggle room and margin to grow into the next incredible version of yourself, And that rebels we will be, I'm going to share with you 7 ways to increase the amount of margin that you have in your life. Number 1, learn to prioritize and delegate. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you cannot do it all, and you certainly cannot do it all alone. In order to not be the one holding all of the tasks and feeling the weight that comes along with the pressure to complete each and everything, you need to be able to determine what's essential for you to do and what's non essential. Those non essential tasks can be eliminated completely, or if they are things that just need to be done, but not by you, those are things that can be delegated. Prioritizing can feel super hard for us. It can be a challenge to determine what the essential tasks are. Ask yourself, does this need to be me doing this specific thing? Is it clinical and requires a higher level medical decision making? Or is there a workflow and an algorithm that I can teach to my staff or someone else? Even if it does require a provider, here is your friendly reminder that you are not the only provider on earth. And still, there could be someone else who would like to do that task or that you can assign to be responsible for it. In order to effectively prioritize, you need to have it on your radar and actively be looking for things that you do but don't actually need to be doing. A note on delegating. This can take more time and mental energy on the front end with the goal of delegating being the relief of this burden of those tasks for you on the back end. In order to delegate a task to someone, you have to clearly communicate that you need them to do the task. To be unclear is to be unkind. Delegating tasks requires clear communication, telling them what you need them to do, and you've got to share the expectation and the standard to which you're going to hold them. Letting them know the results you expect and how they will be evaluated will help whoever you're delegating that task to be successful. If it's a task that you've been doing, you may need to walk them through the workflow, show them how you do it, but also encourage them to find another way to do it that works for them. The bottom line is often that the task gets done, not that they do it the exact same way that you would do it. In order to feel confident that who you are delegating to can complete the task, you may want to ask them to demonstrate proficiency before you hand it off altogether. In medicine, we love to say, see one, do one, teach one. You might not even need them to teach one, or you could ask them to teach it back to you. But the first two, to have the person you're delegating to observe the task and then to do it themselves, can help you to feel more confident in your delegation. So, prioritizing what tasks are important for you to do and delegating those tasks that are not essential for you is a great way to take back time at home and in life, but also in the midst of your workday. Number 2, leverage time blocking. Time blocking is this idea that you have a block of time that is used for a specific task. This may mean that you block time to have a huddle with your clinical team once a week or every morning before you start seeing patients. This improves efficiency and avoids the, oh, by the way, ad hoc questions or issues that come up throughout the day when you're running patients. Utilizing specific blocks of time for their designated tasks or activities has been shown to increase productivity and decrease procrastination. It also can be used as a tactic to contain those tasks that seem to be happening all day, every day. These tasks that tend to expand the amount of time you give them can be a huge pain because you're trying to get in a workflow seeing patients and you're answering in basket messages. So let's take that in basket management as an example. If you have an in basket full of results, it can feel like from the moment you arrive at clinic until you're sitting at home on that couch each night, that you're chipping away at the inbox one message at a time, but never really getting anywhere. Time blocking would be leveraging your existing admin time in a specific block where you aren't taking phone calls or pages or seeing patients and you're working through the results of your in basket specifically. The other benefit of time blocking is that it shows you just how much time you are spending on a task. For example, if you start using admin time for actual administrative tasks and you are not able to make the headway that you need, you could use that as leverage to increase your admin time and to be able to prove to your administration that the administrative tasks associated with seeing the complexity and number of patients that you're seeing warrant more time. So if you aren't able to complete those tasks in the designated time, you can use that as leverage. It's really hard to make that argument if you're answering your in-basket all day, every day, because it's hard to capture exactly how much time you spent on those specific tasks or results. Number 3, batch your work. Along the same lines as time blocking, batching your work is when you group specific types of tasks together and do them one after another. Batching your work is most effective for work that you need to be in a flow state to do, or anything that requires a lot of preparation or setup in order to get things done. I'll give you a non-clinical example from my day today. So yesterday I sat down and I polished up the scripts for 5 solo podcast episodes. I had some that were simply an idea, some that had been outlined but needed to be fleshed out, and 2 that were almost done but needed to be edited and ready for recording. Today's focused work time is dedicated to getting all 5 episode scripts ready to record. Well, I guess that was technically yesterday's work. And today is when I make sure my house is empty and quiet, when I set up the lights and the camera and the microphone and hit record. I'm not going to have to put in the prep or setup to do this recording again and again and again. I'm going to record 5 solo episodes back to back to back to batch that work and get it done. Doing this improves my flow and concentration. I am able to get in a groove. Although this is the first episode that I'm recording today, so maybe I'm not quite all the way in that groove yet. This means that you can get set up in situations where you're in the headspace. You need to be in that flow state to tackle those tasks one after another. So you sort of get in the groove and you're able to make some progress and get that momentum going. Batch working will save you time, which is the whole point here, but it also has been shown to increase your productivity. You can do it in small batches. So it doesn't have to be like a huge block of time, because I get that that might not be sustainable depending on what clinical setting you're practicing in. It can be, I see 2 patients in patient rounds on the same floor, grab a computer, sit down, get the notes done while the patient interactions are fresh in your mind. Or when you sit down to run the list with your team, you can do it all at once. You prep, you sit down, you run the list with your team. It's smooth and productive as possible. You keep moving, you're not bouncing all over the place. So using batch work is probably already happening during your day, but being aware of this tool can make sure that you use it effectively, and it will improve your efficiency, especially when it comes to clinical documentation. We interrupt this broadcast with a very important announcement. You are not making enough money. Your practice and your physician do not understand the value you are adding to their patients, and therefore, you aren't earning what you're worth. If in the past your requests for a raise have been met with one single word, no. If you're working more hours than ever and seeing more patients, but you're not making any more money and you're feeling pissed about it. If you feel like you've hit the ceiling of your income band, this guide is for you. I've compiled the 5 most costly and most common mistakes that PAs make when asking for a raise, and I've told you how to avoid them and what to do instead. Download your free guide at tracybingaman.com/mistakes. Next, number 4, schedule it. We're going to talk about the S word, your schedule. So far, a lot of this episode has focused on increasing your productivity at work and giving you more margin to improve that efficiency inside of clinical practice. Your schedule definitely matters at work. Specifically, your template if you work outpatient or clinic or in any appointment type setting. But schedule also matters immensely outside of work. If you want more margin in your life, you have to schedule it. You'll need to block time for yourself, for self-care, for solo time, growth, and reflection. Intentionally setting aside time for things like fun, hobbies, and connection with those that you love has nothing to do with efficiency and everything to do with crafting a life that you enjoy and that you love living. Building a life that you enjoy is pretty much the entire point of having more margin in your life anyway. The other way is that scheduling can improve margin in your life is by taking your PTO. Whether it's leveraging your paid time off for vacations and travel or staycations, as you're probably familiar with, or if it's giving yourself the gift of random days of paid time off throughout the year, I want you to make it a point to schedule your time off and use it wisely, but also to use it up. I once heard a statistic that 55% of paid time off in the United States goes unused each year, which I simply don't understand. Not using your paid time off, when it comes to this, it's like your employer saying, "Hey, we're going to pay you for today. Please stay home." And you're saying, "Nah, I'd rather work than stay home and connect with my family or do something that is restful and rejuvenating for me." You're saying, "No thanks. I'd rather work and get paid than not work and get paid," which is bananas. You need to create a plan to schedule and take your paid time off without guilt. Your other team members will cover you or it will get itself figured out, but that paid time off is yours to take. They're paying you not to work. The best thing that you can do is, in fact, not work. Number 5 is to increase your efficiency. Now, when we talk about increasing efficiency, I don't mean getting sloppy or starting to rush in your clinical decision making or in your documentation. I mean creating systems and habits that help you get your work done better and faster. This is not about hurrying, but doing it well and efficiently. Whether it's creating smart phrases and templates and leveraging those as a part of your EMR. I know that electronic medical records can feel like a huge drag with thousands of clicks, and it feels like it takes forever to get through the documentation required for one single visit. But the thing about EMR is they are also super smart. Figuring out how to use the system you're working with can increase your efficiency. It can help you to get your notes signed before leaving clinic. I want you to consider inquiring about meeting with a super user or a clinical specialist in your area who is really comfortable with the EMR. If you don't have access to that or you want to keep it smaller, simply ask a provider in your office who is efficient and seems to always have their notes done and knows what they are doing. You might be even able to shadow this person and see them documenting. You can ask them what templates they use and how they adapted them to work well for them in their specific situation, and see if they'd be willing to share their existing templates with you. Let's face it, documentation isn't going anywhere, but if you want to increase your efficiency and free up time, documenting as quickly and accurately as possible is key. Number 6, eradicate time vampires. There are certain things that you do every day that suck the life directly from your soul. They take up time and energy, they interrupt your flow state, and they steal your momentum. These time vampires might be self induced, like scrolling on your phone between each visit instead of signing that note or getting bogged down by office gossip. Or they could be that one patient whose name you see on your schedule and dread unfurls in the pit of your stomach. First, I want to tackle the time vampires that are self induced. For me, this almost always includes reaching over and picking up my phone as the first step to walking into that vortex where time stops and I get super distracted. So let's face it, these tiny supercomputers we are carrying around in our lab coat pockets are a huge drain. It doesn't even necessarily need to be social media or text messages, although for me, it often is. It can be Tiger Text or a group text with your fellow providers in your group. It can be a work related time vampire that gets you out of focusing on what you're doing. And even if it's non urgent, sort of pulls you out and takes your time and attention. We all know that unlocking your phone and starting to scroll distracts you from the task at hand. I did an entire episode a while ago on digital distraction. And one of the biggest things that you can do to decrease your digital distraction is to disable your notifications. You might not be able to do that with things like Tiger Text or if you have a texting service instead of a pager, but you definitely can with social media sites, You can also set your phone to do not disturb mode while you are at work and only allow notifications for calls or texts from certain approved people during work hours. Now you can manually turn that on when you walk in for the day, or you can have it set to be the time of day and the time of time when you are at work automatically, like it'll turn on for you. Whatever it is for you, the reason that you pick up your phone and open up the internet browser on your computer, I want you to take some time and identify what it is that you're looking up or looking at, and become aware of how many times you're doing it during your workday. This may actually be a defense mechanism. It can be something that you're doing out of habit, but it can also be that you're struggling and feeling burned out, and you need that dopamine hit to distract you before you can muster up the compassion and motivation to see your next patient. Focus on what prompts you to take part in that distraction and that distracting activity, and see if you can use a different coping mechanism instead. Patients and their families also can fit the bill for time vampires in your schedule. You will undoubtedly encounter these in any clinical setting that you are practicing. It can sometimes be really hard to extricate yourself from these conversations, to shake it off, and to keep on going in the course of a day or of a shift. I want you to think about having a couple of exit strategies in your back pocket, whether it's you excusing yourself from the room, being straightforward about limiting the number of complaints for those repeat offenders, and just say, hey, we're happy to talk about 2 of your complaints today. I'm going to need you to reschedule to talk about any of these other things. Or asking your MA or nurse to come get you after a certain amount of time in the room, and be ready and willing to use those tactics to keep on task. I know that you want to give your patients undivided care and attention, and that everyone deserves that. But there is also a logistical limit of how much time you can spend in each person's room and as a part of their visit, and still be able to see all the patients you need to see during the day and document safely and appropriately for them. Last but certainly not least, number 7, set boundaries. The last tip I have for you to create more margin in your life is to intentionally set boundaries. Healthy boundaries that are clearly communicated are incredibly important in creating time in your life and margin in your schedule. This can come up at work when someone comes to ask about those same day slots, or they have another duty as assigned, or the things that people are asking you to do on a regular basis that you're very used to saying yes to. Setting boundaries is almost like setting up a personal policy. You know how your office probably has a tardiness policy that when a patient shows up more than X minutes late for their appointment, they'll have to reschedule. Boundaries are like personal policies. When people try to ask you to do more, to take away that margin of your life, to burden you with more, personal policies protect you. No is, in fact, a complete sentence. Saying no to that same day add on is within your power. Not going off your template to accommodate extra patients is absolutely okay to do. We do have an episode coming up on boundaries where I'll unpack boundaries and share the anatomy of a healthy boundary. So if this is an area that is a struggle for you, if you are a people pleaser or a recovering people pleaser, I want you to make sure that you're subscribed so you'll have the podcast episode delivered directly to your podcast queue when it drops. I want you to hear this loud and clear. Margin matters. Having margin makes it easier to breathe deeply. It creates opportunities for big, fat minutes in your life that you get to savor. Having margin in your workday means that you have time for innovation and to improve your patient care and experience, to get your documentation done, and to get out on time. Margin as a part of your life in general leads to magic moments and important memories. It helps you to get out of work on time and improves both your patient care and efficiency. Margin is also hard to come by. And when you're used to running and running and running from one thing to another, it can be difficult to get used to. My best recommendation is to take small steps and implement gradual changes into your life. I want you to work to be patient with yourself, extend grace, and give yourself time to develop habits and systems that generate more margin in your work and your life. That is all for now. I will see you next time on The PA is In. As for now, this PA is out. Congratulations, you've just joined an awesome club. By listening to a full episode of The PA is In, you are officially on the Unicorn PA team. Welcome aboard. What most team members do is they subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episode of the show. The life of your dreams exists on the other side of taking action. Keep making small shifts and keep getting better. Your life will improve, your career will soar, and you will have the confidence you need to create your own success. I will see you in the next episode. This PA is out.